This video is sponsored by Surfshark. It's official, guys, Oktoberfest 2020 is cancelled for obvious reasons, but the good news in that is that you can have just as good of an Oktoberfest at home as anybody else this year. And to me, the best part of Oktoberfest is not the beer, but a fresh pretzel. Crunchy on the outside, soft and tender on the inside. Wow, it feels extraordinarily stupid to say pretzel when you're from Germany. Over here we say Brezel or Brezn, as they would say down south in Bavaria, which is of course the home of the Oktoberfest. So we're gonna make a home-friendly version of fresh Brezen at home, which is totally doable with just one little catch, but I'm gonna make up for it by showing you a little bonus pretzel bite recipe, and also we'll make some Obazda, which is a very traditional spread to go with Brezen. And that's because I keep hearing people from America talk about eating pretzels with mustard? I mean, it's not crazy because you do get served soft pretzels, white sausage and sweet mustard alongside your Oktoberfest beer traditionally, but the mustard is kind of for the sausage. I mean, you do you, of course, but I don't exactly think that's a thing over here in Germany. But then again, I'm from Berlin, not Bavaria, so what do I know? We're starting out with our dough, which is actually not far from a pretty standard bread dough. Start with all-purpose flour and dried yeast. Actually, traditional Brezel recipes will usually call for fresh yeast. But then on the other hand, you know, since dried yeast has only been around since the mid-20th century, all traditional recipes in the world should be calling for fresh yeast, or more likely sourdough actually. But as many bakers will tell you, dried yeast is completely fine for pretty much all applications. What really does make a difference is this mystery ingredient, that's diastatic malt powder, also known as baking malt. This is actually really worth taking note of. There's this traditional process where millers take wheat berries and they let them germinate for a couple of days. Then they take those sprouted wheat berries and they gently heat them up to just about 40 degrees Celsius, which is gonna kill the germ, but not all the enzymes that the grain has produced. And then this gets dried and milled into the powder we call baking malt. The enzymes in the baking malt help to break down the flour for the yeast to snack on. And that's gonna lead to a better rise, more flavor, and an amazing texture. And not just for pretzels actually, but for many other soft white breads. And relax, it's still gonna work if you don't have that stuff around. Just add a little bit of sugar and you'll be fine. Mix your dry ingredients first, and then we wanna add a few bits of softened room temperature butter. Okay, normally you'd add water now, but hey, it's Oktoberfest, so why not add some beer instead? Yes, that's actually something I like to do, not just for pretzels, but also for pizza dough or sourdough. But don't worry, your bread will not really taste like beer, but it will gain a subtle layer of malty savoriness. But again, don't worry, you can totally stick to water. Either way, combine all of your ingredients and make sure to give your dough a very thorough knead, about 10 minutes, until you can form a clean ball with a somewhat smooth surface, which we're gonna proof for 1 full hour until puffy and doubled in size. Punch that down to get the air out and then divide and shape into 8 balls weighing roughly 100 grams each. Rest them for around 10 minutes to relax, then flatten each of the balls with your hands and roll them up into a sort of mini baguette shaped thing. This step makes it a lot easier to shape them into actual pretzels, and here's how you do that. After another quick rest, roll the dough out into long ropes, starting at the middle and going outward with slightly increasing pressure so you get a thicker middle and thinner ends. Roughly speaking, the diameter of a pencil towards the thin end. Now, this entire pretzel process, only pro bakers get this perfectly right, so there's no shame in correcting a little bit at any stage. I like to secure the middle with one hand here and make corrections with the other. Once you get a somewhat even rope of dough, take the 2 tapered ends and lay them over each other. Then put one end under the other and cross them again. Fold over and press into the thick end of the pretzel rope to secure. The more you do this, the better you'll get, but this is definitely not rocket science. Rest the shaped pretzels on a sheet of baking paper for around 15 minutes, and then after that you want to put them in the fridge for about an hour or so they can cool down and firm up. And at this point I really should mention that this is of course an accelerated recipe. For professional bakers, the dough is of course slowly risen in the fridge overnight, but that is not even the biggest difference between a pro pretzel and a homemade one. Because the next step is to dip your pretzels into a 4% sodium hydroxide solution. The easiest way to source sodium hydroxide for home production is simply using a little bit of drain cleaner, which you can just add to some No. No, 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 no. I hope you did not believe that. Because while it is true that yes, indeed, sodium hydroxide is the secret ingredient to perfect pretzels, and it is also the main component of drain cleaner, you will have to A, make sure you're using an actually food safe product that's not drain cleaner, right? But I mean, the food grade stuff, you can get it online, but you did not hear that from me. And then B, even if you get that stuff, you would still have to wear protective goggles and rubber gloves because, you know, that stuff is highly caustic and it is actually dangerous to work with. The home safe solution is to simply dissolve 3 tablespoons of baking soda per liter in some hot water and then simply poach your raw pretzels in there for about 30 to 60 seconds. Quite similar to a bagel, actually. The thing is, that beautiful dark color and that sort of slight sheen that you get on a professionally made Brezen, that's the result of the exact process we're trying to, you know, work our way around here. Proper professional grade lye solution sort of corrodes the outside of the pretzel, and that highly encourages the Maillard reaction, also known as delicious browning. And while sodium hydroxide has a pH of 11, while baking soda just has a pH of like 9, there are definitely limits to how close to the original we can get in the home safe setting. But then the upshot is you don't risk losing your eyesight, so that's good, I guess. Now, for the traditional pretzel look, you want to give them another fresh brush with your alkaline water and then sprinkle on some rock salt, which honestly, I don't really like taste-wise and end up removing normally, but if you make a pretzel without it, it just looks so sad. So, you know, I usually just roll with it. Score them with a wet knife along the thick side and your beautiful pretzels are ready to go in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes or until they look like pretzels. Now, if you ask me, the most classic way to eat pretzels all over Germany is to slice them open, slather them with butter, and sprinkle on some chives. To me, this is already perfect as is, but there is one very authentically Bavarian contender, which is dipping your pretzels into a delicious spread called Obazda. We're gonna talk about just that, as well as how to make delicious pretzel bites after I say a big thank you to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this episode. This year, I don't think I need to tell anybody how much we all rely on the internet these days. We'd like to think that our information is safe, but you know, we've all had very creepy ads pop up on our devices, so sometimes I'm not so sure. Surfshark is a VPN service that protects your information by encrypting all the data you send through the internet, no matter if it's your home computer or your mobile devices. Remember when I went to Hainan in Singapore last year to find perfect Hainan chicken? I actually used Surfshark on that entire trip for peace of mind whenever I was logging onto the internet from like, what, 5 different places every day? My data, my business, okay? But you know what? I'll admit, protection is not the only reason to use a VPN. When you log into Surfshark, you can virtually change your location, and that will allow you to access some content that might not be available in the country you're in. Which, by the way, happens quite a lot when I research recipes from all over the world for this channel. And right now, Surfshark has a pretty sweet deal on. By using my link in the video description and the promo code Andong, you will get, check this, 85% off, which means that for just a few bucks a month, you can be fully protected. Plus, you're even gonna get 3 months free. But here's the kicker. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you try it and you don't like it, you can simply cancel your subscription, get your money back, and buy yourself a pretzel with all that cash. Thank you, Surfshark, for sponsoring this video. Okay, now back to pretzels. In general, we don't just make Brezen over here with that lye dipping technique. I think mini baguettes called Laugenstangen or just simple like small bread rolls made with the same technique are just as popular, especially outside of Bavaria. And then there are these little pretzel bites, sometimes called Laugenkonfekt, which I believe are more of a new trend, but I think they're fantastic as like little dinner rolls or just a party snack. The technique here is very similar. You get your dough sticks, but instead of shaping them into pretzels, you simply poach the whole thing in your alkaline water. Then you prepare a little tray that you can fill with any type of topping you like. Sunflower or pumpkin seeds, sesame or poppy seeds, or even cheese are quite common. Brush the poached dough with some extra liquid so it gets a little bit sticky, and then simply roll in your topping and then slice the entire thing into, 4 to 5 little nuggets. This will work especially well for small seeds. The big ones and the cheese, they can get a bit tricky, but it's worth it. These will go into the oven for 10 to 15 minutes, just like pretzels, and there you go. I promise people will gobble them up at your next brunch. You're welcome. But wait, you might be saying, what should we put on the pretzels and the pretzel bites? Well, let me introduce you to Obazda. The word Obazda comes from the Bavarian dialect and it means something like mashed. And indeed, that's what it is. Mashed cheese with spices. Historically, this was a way to use up leftovers of old and overripe cheese, but these days people mostly make it from semi-soft cheese like camembert or brie. Even though it's traditionally mashed, I will highly recommend pre-chopping your cheese until it turns into a goopy mess, because it's definitely much easier this way when working with smaller quantities. Now, to this chopped cheese, we'll add a knob of room temperature butter, a few dollops of cream cheese, a very, very finely minced shallot, and for the classic flavor you'll find in Germany, some freshly crushed caraway seeds and a little bit of paprika, or smoked paprika even, for a bit of a kick. I actually also love adding chives for a little bit of color contrast. I know it looks real pretty like this, but unfortunately we have to mash everything into oblivion as tradition dictates. Once homogeneous, check for flavor and add salt and pepper to taste. And the key secret ingredient is a tiny bit of Bavarian beer. Here's a little non-traditional suggestion from me: add a tiny little bit of both sugar and apple cider vinegar to balance out the richness. And now stir one final time. It might look a little bit runny here, but that's because it warmed up a bit. Ideally, you want to rest this in the fridge for a few hours or overnight before eating, where it's definitely gonna firm back up. But hey, here's an actually authentic German way to eat a pretzel. We're gonna be tearing pieces off the pretzel and enjoying their heterogeneity. The thick parts are pillowy and soft inside, the thin parts are almost like crackers, and that's one of the best things about Brezen. Every bite is a surprise. Eat them any way you like, but if you want to dip them into your homemade Obazda, nobody's gonna judge you, because that is definitely how lots and lots of people in Germany roll. I hope you guys give this Brezen recipe a shot and have yourselves a little Oktoberfest at home. If you do, definitely put your pictures up on Instagram and tag me. I want to see what it looks like. And you know, with that being said, I'll see you in the next one.